On the morning of June 28th, 1967, the usually quiet neighborhood of Britannia Road in Easton, Bristol, was shaken to its core. Neighbors had grown concerned when 75-year-old widow Louisa Dunne failed to answer her door. The night before, a woman nearby had heard a faint, chilling scream, but nothing had followed. Out of worry, several residents decided to enter the house. The front door was unlocked. Inside, in the modest living room that Louisa used as a bedroom, they discovered a horrific sight. Louisa lay lifeless on a pile of old clothes, her body showing clear signs of a violent attack. Louisa was well known in the community as a quiet, kind, and gentle woman. Twice widowed, she lived alone, supported occasionally by visits from her grown children. She had been a familiar face at the local market and church, and no one could imagine who would wish her harm. Yet what the police uncovered that morning left. Louisa had been raped and strangled to death. When officers from Avon and Somerset police arrived, they immediately sealed off the terraced home. Crime scene photographs were taken, fingerprints were dusted for, and every room was inspected. The initial findings were grim. The scarf that appeared to have been used to choke Louisa lay nearby. Her injuries suggested both strangulation and suffocation, with a hand clamped over her mouth to silence her cries. The house itself showed surprisingly little sign of a struggle. There was no forced chaos in the rooms, no overturned furniture. Only small disarray in the living room hinted at what had happened. The attack had been swift, brutal, and carried out with terrifying control. During the autopsy, the pathologist confirmed that Louisa had died from asphyxiation due to strangulation and smothering. Swabs revealed the presence of semen. But in 1967, forensic science was primitive by today's standards. DNA profiling did not exist. The only tests available could identify a blood group, information too general to point to a specific suspect. Still, the police pressed forward. Detectives launched one of the largest manhunts Bristol had ever seen. A palm print lifted from an upstairs window seemed promising. Investigators took palm and fingerprint samples from an estimated 19,000 men and boys living in the local area, desperately hoping for a match. But every single comparison failed. The palm print remained unidentified, and with it, the trail grew cold. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in Easton turned to fear. The murder of an elderly woman in her own home shattered the community's sense of safety. Elderly residents, once comfortable walking to the corner shop at dusk, now locked their doors tightly. Parents warned their children not to speak to strangers. The unsolved killing hung like a shadow over Britannia Road. Unbeknown to investigators, the man they were searching for was living less than 2 miles away. His name was Ryland Headley, a 34-year-old railway worker. He lived with his wife on Picton Street, crucially, just outside the geographical zone from which police had collected palm prints. Because of that small oversight, Headley's sample was never taken. He slipped through the cracks. Within months of Louisa's murder, Headley quietly uprooted his family and moved away from Bristol, first to London, later to Ipswich. That move effectively erased him from local suspicion. Police, not realizing how close they had come, had no way to connect him to the crime. As the years passed, Louisa's family was left devastated. Her 2 children buried their mother, with the haunting knowledge that justice had not been served. They lived with unanswered questions. Who had broken into their mother's home? Who had taken her life in such a cruel way? And why had no one been caught? The case file grew older, its photographs and evidence carefully packed away in boxers and stored in police archives. Officers occasionally revisited the investigation, but without new leads, it was a puzzle that refused to be solved. Meanwhile, Headley continued his life, but his violent impulses did not end in 1967. A decade later, in 1977, he committed to more rapes against elderly women. Breaking into their homes, terrorized and assaulted them before being arrested and imprisoned. Yet, Easton, no connection was made between him and the unsolved murder of Louisa Dunne. The palm print from Britannia Road, the semen samples, the unanswered scream in the night, all remained part of Britain's growing list of cold cases. For decades, the murder of Louisa Dunne sat unsolved, becoming one of the most enduring mysteries in Bristol's criminal history. Generations of detectives would come and go, each aware of the unsolved file, but unable to push it further, and so it waited, silently, in police storage, for science to advance enough to reveal what had always been hidden in plain sight. For more than half a century, the case of Louisa Dunne's murder remained unsolved. Year after year, the file sat in Avon and Somerset police archives, carefully preserved but dormant. Louisa's name was occasionally mentioned by retired officers recalling the one that got away. Her children and grandchildren grew older, with the weight of unanswered questions, still hoping that one day justice would arrive. The turning point came in the 21st century, when forensic science had advanced far beyond what anyone in 1967 could have imagined. DNA testing had revolutionized criminal investigations. Cold cases once thought impossible to solve were being reopened across the UK, giving families long-delayed answers. Among those cases was the forgotten file of Louisa Dunne. In 2023, Avon and Somerset detectives decided to re-examine the evidence. They retrieved boxes containing the clothing Louisa had been wearing when she was found, carefully sealed and stored for decades. One item in particular, a blue skirt, was sent for advanced forensic testing in May of that year. Specialists conducted DNA analysis, with modern techniques capable of extracting profiles from even degraded samples. The results were astonishing. From the skirt, scientists recovered a complete DNA profile. When the data was uploaded to the National DNA Database, it returned a match. Ryland Headley. For investigators, this was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. The probability ratio was overwhelming. 1 billion times more likely to be his DNA than anyone else's. Headley, now in his 90s and living quietly in Ipswich, was finally exposed as the man who had left biological traces on Louisa-esque body over half a century earlier. Police began to piece together his history. Headley's DNA had entered the national system in 2012, during an unrelated investigation that never led to charges. That single administrative step, routine at the time, would later prove to be the key that unlocked Britain's longest-running cold case. Detectives moved swiftly. In November 2023, officers arrived at Headley's modest home on Clarence Road, Ipswich. The man they confronted was no longer the 34-year-old railway worker of 1967, but a frail 92-year-old with hearing difficulties and arthritis. When told he was being arrested for the murder of Louisa Dunne, Headley reportedly responded, "I don't know what you were talking about." Very strange, very strange.
Good morning. Could you open the door, please? Just like to speak with you. Could you open the door, please? Thank you very much.
Who are you?
I'll explain. I'm from the police.
You what?
I'm from the police.
What?
Good morning. Hello. I'm from the police.
What's here?
I'm from the police. My name's Naomi Main. I'm a detective. May I come in, please?
No. You can't come now. I'm just coming now. Where you want to come in for?
I'll explain because it's a bit sensitive. So we'd like to come in and speak to you properly, please.
Eh?
May I come in to speak to you properly?
I mean, I've just got up. I'm an old man.
I'm sorry. It's quite early.
I'm very sick. Not good at all.
You're not well?
No.
Okay.
What you want to? What is it about?
I'll tell you inside because we don't want other people hearing. So can we just come in and get you seated and have a chat? Thank you very much. Here's Mr. Headley, yes?
Eh?
Mr. Headley?
Yeah.
Ryland Headley, lovely. Thank you very much. This is my colleague Jo. We've just got a camera recording as well, just so you're aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm here today because I'm arresting you
Yeah.
on suspicion of the rape and murder
Yeah.
of Louisa Dunne, which happened in Bristol in June 1967.
Yeah.
The reason I'm arresting you
Yeah.
is because the police have investigative material that indicates you are responsible for that rape and murder of Mrs. Dunne,
Yeah.
which happened at Britannia Road in Easton, Bristol, June 1967.
Yeah.
You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you don't mention when questioned something that you later align in court.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
Yeah.
I need to do this.
Wait. What? Where all this come from? Where you get all this from?
We have investigative information, so we have material that suggests that it's yourself, and we need to basically arrest you and take you to the custody so that we can conduct an interview with you, so we can hear, your event and interview about it.
Into what?
Interview you about it and get your account.
Despite his age and frailty, the evidence against him was overwhelming. Investigators not only had the DNA match, but also revisited the palm print collected from Louisa's house in 1967. For decades, that print had eluded them. Now, with Headley in custody, detectives finally had the opportunity to compare it directly. Although earlier police records noted that his arthritic wrists made it difficult for him to provide palm prints, officers managed to take new samples. A fingerprint expert then examined them against the original print from Louisa's window. The conclusion was decisive. Over 25 unique characteristics matched perfectly. The palm print left in 1967 belonged to Headley.
Why did you go through the upstairs window?
No comment.
Is it because you wanted to go into the bedroom?
No comment.
Okay. So, what has then made you come back out of that window and go in via a different window instead?
No comment.
Okay.
No comment.
You look a bit confused by that. Do you want to ask me something?
He said, no, and you often climbed up 2 windows at this and that people's house. No comment. A bit knowing this question, you know. No
Okay.
comment.
So, when police have attended the following day, they've noticed that the bedrooms upstairs have locks on them inside the corridor. So if you had entered via that upstairs window, you would have been trapped in the bedroom. Is that why you then came back out
No comment.
and went through a different window?
No comment.
Did this not happen? You can tell me if this is rubbish and it didn't happen.
No comment.
Okay. Because remember, this is your opportunity to give us your account. And if you didn't do this, this is your time to tell us.
No comment. I didn't. No comment.
You didn't.
No comment.
And on the upstairs window, when police attended the next day, there was a handprint or partial handprint found on the window. Obviously, you've had your handprints taken today while you've been in custody. When we compare those, do you think they're going to match?
No comment.
Could it be your handprint?
No comment.
Is there any legitimate reason why it might be your handprint?
No comment.
Because if you didn't do this, have you ever been there for any other reason that would explain why your handprint might be there?
No comment.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about what happens next. Okay, so once you've gone in, or somebody has gone in, we believe it to be you, through that window, Louisa has been attacked. Can you tell me about that?
No comment.
Where did you find her in the house?
No comment.
Or did she find you, maybe?
No comment.
Okay. How did she react to seeing you in the house?
No comment.
Did you have the impression you were welcome?
No comment.
Was there any conversation between you and Louisa?
No comment.
Okay. Was she expecting you?
No comment.
There were a number of people nearby who heard a scream in the early hours of the morning.
No comment.
Did Louisa scream?
No comment.
What made her scream?
No comment.
Can you tell me how Louisa died?
No comment.
Did she die as a result of your actions?
No comment.
And if so, what were your actions?
No comment.
Was it an accident?
No comment.
Did you go in that house intending to kill her?
No comment.
So Louisa was found, as I said, lying on the floor in that same room, having been raped. She also had a scarf on her neck and a stocking. I think the scarf was underneath her neck, round the back, and the stocking over the top.
No. No.
Okay. Can you tell me how those items got there?
No comment.
Did you use those items to strangle Louisa?
No comment.
Did you use anything else?
No comment.
The picture became clearer. Headley had lived just over a mile from Louisa at the time of the murder. His house, on Picton Street, was outside the designated area where police had canvassed 4 prints in 1967. That geographical oversight had allowed him to evade scrutiny. Shortly after Louisa's death, he relocated his family first to London and then to Ipswich, escaping the local dragnet entirely. As detectives delved into his past, they found further disturbing connections. In 1977, Headley had been convicted and jailed for the rape of 2 elderly women. In those cases, he had broken into their homes, threatened them with violence, and carried out the attacks. During sentencing, he even admitted to a string of burglaries, 10 in total, that showed a pattern of targeting vulnerable victims, often elderly women living alone. This pattern matched Louisa's case all too well. A man who preyed on the elderly, who forced entry into homes at night, who showed no hesitation in using violence. It was the same man who had silenced Louisa back in 19... The reopening of the case drew national attention. Media outlets reported on the extraordinary development. A murder unsolved for 56 years, now brought back into the light by modern science. Louisa's surviving relatives, some of whom were grandchildren and great-grandchildren, expressed both shock and relief. After decades of silence, they would finally see someone held accountable. The trial was scheduled at Bristol Crown Court in early 2025. Because of Headley's advanced age and frailty, special arrangements were made. He required a hearing loop to follow proceedings and was supported by an intermediary. Court days were shortened to accommodate his condition, but the jury would still hear every detail of the case. The prosecution laid out the evidence methodically. The DNA profile from the skirt, the palm print match, the pathologist's conclusion about strangulation and suffocation, and Headley's criminal history of targeting elderly women. They argued that the evidence left no doubt. Ryland Headley was the man who had raped and murdered Louisa Dunne in her own home in June 1967. Headley, for his part, denied the charges. Through his lawyer, Jeremy Benson Cassé, he claimed to have no recollection of ever meeting Louisa or entering her house. He insisted that he had not raped her, nor killed her. His defense suggested that the DNA might have been transferred by some other means, though no plausible explanation was provided. The jury, however, was unconvinced. Over the course of 9 hours and 53 minutes of deliberation, they reached their verdicts. Guilty of rape, unanimous. Guilty of murder, majority 10-2. When the verdict was announced, Headley remained silent. The weight of 56 years of unanswered justice had finally crashed down upon him. On a cold February morning in 2025, the courtroom at Bristol Crown Court was filled with an atmosphere that was difficult to describe. For some, it was tension. For others, it was a kind of exhausted relief that justice, however delayed, might finally be served. At the center of it all sat Ryland Headley, a man of 92, frail, with thinning white hair, and a quiet demeanor that seemed almost at odds with the brutal crime for which he had just been convicted. He sat still, listening through a hearing loop, his face impassive as the jury confirmed the verdict, guilty of the rape and murder of Louisa Dunne. More than half a century had passed since the night of her death, and now, at last, the case that had haunted Bristol for decades was resolved. The judge, Mr. Justice Sweeting, addressed the courtroom with a tone that mixed solemnity and compassion. He acknowledged the jury's service, noting that what they had endured was extraordinary. He told them that if they were summoned again for jury duty within the next 10 years, they were entitled to decline, a rare recognition of the emotional weight of what they had carried. Then he turned to the case itself, recounting in detail the brutality of Headley's actions. In 1967, he had broken into the home of a 75-year-old widow who lived alone, a woman who had already endured 2 wars and 2 marriages, and who should have been safe in her own house. Instead, she was subjected to violence, violated, and strangled with her own scarf, her final moments spent in terror and silence. The judge described it as an act of cruelty and cowardice, the deliberate targeting of a vulnerable woman. When he pronounced the sentence, life imprisonment, the courtroom fell silent. Everyone present understood what it meant. At 92, life imprisonment was effectively a death sentence. Headley would not leave prison alive. Yet the symbolism mattered. The law had spoken. There was no escape from accountability, no hiding behind a passing of time, no forgiveness in silence. For Louisa's family, it was a moment they had waited for all their lives. Some of them wept quietly. Others clutched framed photographs of the woman they had lost. One granddaughter later told reporters that they had spent years believing the world had forgotten Louisa, that her story had been swallowed up by history. Now, she said, the truth had been heard, and although justice had come late, it had come nonetheless. The impact of the verdict stretched beyond Louisa's family. For Avon and Somerset police, it was the successful conclusion of Britain's longest-running cold case. Detectives spoke openly about the importance of never giving up, about how this case proved that even the passage of 57 years did not have to mean the trail was cold forever. Detective Inspector Dave Marchant noted that the conviction raised unsettling questions. If Headley had committed this crime in 1967 and gone on to commit further rapes in the 1970s, what else might he have done in the years in between? In 1977, he had been jailed for 2 rapes of elderly women and admitted to a string of burglaries. Could there be more victims, perhaps never identified, whose cases still lay unsolved in dusty files? The police began reviewing old investigations, liaising with forces across the country and with the National Crime Agency. In an effort to trace any patterns, the suggestion was chilling but plausible. Headley had lived a long life, outwardly ordinary, but the shadow he cast was far darker than most people realized. What made the conviction possible, above all else, was the progress of forensic science. Back in 1967, investigators had carefully preserved the evidence they could. Swabs, samples, a palm print. But at the time, there was little they could do with it. Decades later, with the creation of the National DNA Database and the refinement of testing methods, those same samples became decisive. The tiny traces of biological material left behind on Louisa's clothing told a story that no passage of time could erase. The palm print, once meaningless, became a match. Forensic scientists spoke of it as a landmark case, proof of why evidence preservation is vital and why old crimes must always be revisited when science advances. The message was clear. Time may fade memories, but it cannot erase the truth. For the public, the case revealed a disturbing portrait of a man who had evaded true justice for most of his life. Outwardly, Headley was the picture of normality. A railway employee, a father, a retiree living quietly in Ipswich. But beneath that exterior, he had preyed on the elderly, choosing victims who were vulnerable, isolated, and unable to resist. His conviction for the murder of Louisa confirmed that he had begun his campaign of violence long before the crimes for which he was jailed in the 1970s. To many observers, it seemed inconceivable that such a predator could have committed only the crimes already known. The possibility that there were other victims, other families still waiting for answers, hung over the outcome of the trial. As the sentencing concluded, Louisa's relatives gathered outside the courthouse. They stood together, holding photographs of her, speaking about her life, not just her death. She had been a woman of resilience, they said, who had lived through hardship with dignity and strength, who had offered kindness to her neighbors, and loved her family deeply. They wanted her to be remembered for who she was, not just for the horror of how she died. For them, the conviction meant that her name had been restored, that she was no longer just another unsolved case in a police archive. The house where the crime had taken place on Britannia Road had long since been renovated, its walls painted over, its rooms occupied by new families. But history clings to such places, for Bristol and for the wider public. The story of Louisa Dunne's murder and the long pursuit of her killer would not be forgotten. It would be told as an example of persistence, of science catching up with the past, of justice refusing to be silenced by time. And as Ryland Headley was led away to begin his life sentence, one truth was left ringing in the minds of everyone who had followed the case. Justice delayed is still justice delivered. And no matter how many years Passkill leaves its mark waiting for the day it will be revealed.